Ribbit, 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 ribbit. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Stone Gas Man's channel, live from New York City. And we're going to be doing another 50th anniversary audio commentary tonight. This is going to be awesome. We're going to be doing the 1972 horror film Frogs, directed by George McCowan and starring legendary actor Ray Milland and also Sam Elliott in one of his very first movies, Sans Mustache. And this is a low-budget horror film from the 1970s from the American International Pictures. And I remember first seeing this movie, I think, in the most appropriate way possible. When I was a kid and my parents had to stop somewhere for an oil change or to get automotive maintenance work done, this movie was playing in the waiting room, along with all the coffee and the donuts. And considering this is considered the very first ecological horror film, I think it makes perfect sense that I saw the movie for the first time, basically at a automotive shop. I like the connection there. But so this is going to be a very fun movie tonight. It is available on Shout Factory Blu-ray if you really want to get it. Although there's only like a 10-minute interview with Joan Van Ark, who plays the female lead in the movie. But for anybody else who wants to tune in, it is available for free on YouTube. Just go to the link that is right there on the screen. I will give everybody just about 60 seconds here, and I will be paused at the PG logo, which happens to be on this print. Yeah, this is even the PG logo from the 1970s, but you'll recognize it. It's a mostly blue, and the rating is over on the side, and it says parental guidance suggested some material may not be suitable for pre-teenagers. Yeah. There's definitely material in Frogs that is probably not appropriate for pre-teenagers. But anyway, there's the link. Everybody can go there and get the movie started. Anybody who's in the chat right now, a good evening to you. Thank you for joining me tonight. Daniel Shine, it's always great to see you, dude. Thank you so much for your support and everything. So I'm paused at the PG logo for Frogs. Give it just maybe 30 seconds more here and we'll get started. And this is not exactly a film favorite, but when this came up, I thought to myself, you know what? I've seen this movie enough times, and I think there's enough things that I can say about Frogs to get through this 90 minutes of eco-horror schlock. As I like to call it. I mean, it is fun on one level, particularly if you dig these like old AIP features. I mean, there's at least something appealing about the low budget nature of the whole thing and how they threw these pictures together and everything. But at any rate, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with George McCowan's Frogs. All right, so I'll start down at 3, 2, 1, and press play. And this is the PG logo from back in the 70s. There is the famous American International logo, and we'll be talking a lot about American International throughout the course of this movie. But what is most important in this very first shot is that we have a very, very young Sam Elliott breaking out a camera and taking out pictures of the local wildlife. Sam Elliott was very, very young when he did this movie. In fact, he's so young he doesn't even have his famous mustache, which of course he would become prevalent in all his later roles. But in this film, he was really just playing second fiddle to the real star of the movie, who is Ray Milland, who we will talk about in a bit. But Sam Elliott, of course, he was born in 1944. So in this movie, he's actually 28. He actually looks younger than that. I mean, maybe it's just no mustache, but in fact, looking at his college yearbook photo, he doesn't have a mustache there either. So, but around this time, he began his career as a character actor, and mostly in westerns. I mean, and you could, if you're a Sam Elliott fan, you could, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, with his voice and his appearance and everything, he is perfect for westerns. And he earned his first television credit in 1969 as Dan Kenyon in Judd for the Defense in the episode The Crystal Maze. So in that same year, he appeared in the show Lancer. He went on to appear in 2 additional episodes of the series in the 1970s. And one of his early film roles was actually a card player who watches the Sundance Kid demonstrate his shooting ability in the opening scene of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, the famous Western from 1969 with Robert Redford and Paul Newman. And in the 1970-71 television season, Elliott starred as Doug Robert for several episodes in the hit series Mission Impossible. So at this time, he was basically doing, a lot of television work, getting his feet in the water, literally almost. Well, he definitely will. He will get in the water later. He'll be falling into the drink here very, very soon. But when I saw this as a kid, I didn't necessarily look at this as a very silly movie. As a matter of fact, I mean, maybe it was just because it was written as if it was trying to pull in maybe not specifically a children's audience, but at the same time, look, it's got a PG rating. We're talking about the quote unquote villains of this movie being the wildlife of Florida, But this is a movie that kids could watch on a Saturday matinee, and it probably wouldn't traumatize them whatsoever. That being said, this movie stops short of even if it wants to deliver this ecological message about how, if we poison and destroy the environment, that the environment will come to consume us or come after us eventually. I mean, the truth of the matter is, when I was a kid, I completely saw this, even without a lot of scientific analysis or I think a seriousness as it approaches this theme. The truth of the matter is, the movie made perfect sense to me as a kid. I didn't love it, but it made perfect sense in that, okay, so Ray Milland, he plays this guy, this old crotchety millionaire in Florida, and he's been tired of like all the local wildlife, and his family members are complaining about all the frogs in the area. And that's another thing I need to throw that out right now, that there's no frogs in this movie. Actually, it's all toads. A lot of them are just species of toad, which of course, it's part of the same family, and you can make an argument that, well, that's the funny thing. There's no actual frogs in this movie, even though it's called Frogs. So I mean, Sam Elliott was just getting wet in the business when this movie came along. But you got to say that he probably made the best decision of his life taking Frogs, because of course it jump started him to fame and fortune. Almost, I mean, it took several years, but he would eventually do a lot of movies in the 1970s, pretty big films. Eventually in 1985 he would star opposite Cher in Mask, and then he would do movies like Prancer in 1989, the Christmas movie with the reindeer, and then Roadhouse the same year. That's become a cult classic. But what he seems to be known for most nowadays is being in The Big Lebowski, which is this where he plays the stranger narrating the story of the Big Lebowski and of course the Dude. And that's what a lot of people know him from. I must confess that probably my favorite Sam Elliott role in the past 25 years was actually in a political thriller called The Contender, where Joan Allen became the first female president to be selected. To be the first woman to be selected as vice president when the vice president dies. And the president, played by Jeff Bridges, another alumni from the Big Lebowski, obviously, he asks Ohio Senator Joan Allen to take over as vice president, and of course, there's a lot of resistance from conservative conservative senators like Gary Oldman in the movie that try to say that she was part of these orgies in college and she's not fit to be vice president or whatever. Sam Elliott has a really, really good performance and role in that movie as special advisor to the president, who here again happens to be played by Jeff Bridges. Sam Elliott, however, the thing is, after this movie, he would take his shirt off a couple times in this movie. And what happened was, 4 years after this movie came out, he would do a film in 1976 called Lifeguard, where he had his shirt off practically during the whole movie. And so I guess there was a lot more demand from frogs for shirtless Sam Elliott. There was just a lot of demand for it, I guess. And Lifeguard, even though it didn't get the recognition at the time Baywatch came out, Lifeguard has been cited as the primary inspiration for the Baywatch series. And of course, ultimately the movie. And it all goes back to Sam Elliott in Frogs. He took his shirt off. There was a lot of demand for it. He would get this starring role in a movie called Lifeguard, which isn't great, but at the same time, for a 70s character study, it's not bad. And that, of course, led to the Baywatch TV series with David Hasselhoff. So Baywatch's success owes everything to the movie Frogs. Take that as an asterisk in film historical connections. But look, if you're a Baywatch fan, you need to have Frogs in your collection, okay? Bottom line, you owe it to yourself to own a copy of Frogs. Now, here's a couple more cast members here talking to mustache-less Sam Elliott. We have Adam Rourke, who had done a lot of biker movies for AIP. And we also have Joan Van Ark. Now, she is most famous for doing Dallas and another show that was a spinoff of Dallas. I'm going to have to look it up real quick. But she did like over 300 episodes of that show. But the interesting thing is, and Joan Van Ark is really sexy in this movie. But what I know her personally is about 7 years after this movie, she did a Hanna-Barbera cartoon version of the Marvel character Spider-Woman. And she did about a half a season of that, maybe 13 episodes in 1979. And of course, Spider-Woman has been back in demand because of Into the Spider-Verse movies. So, but this is back in the 70s when, the most you can get for a character like Spider-Woman is a Saturday morning children's series. But Joan Van Ark voiced all 13 episodes of that as Spider-Woman. And it kind of makes sense because there are actually there are spiders in this movie, but they're tarantulas. Now, I didn't have I wish I was like an ecological expert so I can identify all the animal species in this movie because there's quite a few. In fact, I'm pretty sure that those at AIP probably sent the filmmakers out and was kind of like, okay, just get all this B-roll movie footage of all these toads and all these animals, in Florida, and we'll just sprinkle them in throughout the movie as these characters who are pretty stupid and you don't really you don't really root for any of them to survive this ordeal. I mean, that's the thing. This is actually, in essence, a ecological slasher movie where where the frogs are maybe. I mean, here again, as a kid, I was kind of interpreting this as that they were basically telling all the other denizens in the forest and in the Florida swamps, this guy has ruined the water supply. And as a matter of fact, that actually kind of makes sense considering that frogs are like the best indicators for water levels and how toxic the water supply is. Now, sadly, I mean, the frog population has been in dire straits over the past few decades because of a phenomenon which has a very long name. And if I'm going to have to like look it up here to actually get it right. Give me just one moment here. I do apologize. I don't like stopping in commentaries for stuff like this, but believe it or not, I mean, many people think that frogs are harmless. Actually, there are poisonous frogs out there. Now, and of course, they're not aggressive towards humans. I mean, of course, they stay in the swamps and everything. But let's see. Okay, yeah, the name of the phenomenon, it's an infectious disease in amphibians known as chytridiomycosis. Okay, remember that name, chytridiomycosis. It's an infectious disease in amphibians caused by fungi, and it has been linked to dramatic population declines or extinctions of the amphibian species in Western North America, Central America, South America, Eastern Australia, East Africa, and Dominica, and Montserrat in the Caribbean. Much of the New World is also at risk of disease arriving within the coming years. The fungus is capable of causing sporadic deaths in some amphibian populations and 100% more mortality in others. No effective measure is known for control of the disease in wild populations. Various clinical signs are seen by individuals affected by the disease, and a number of options are possible for controlling this disease-causing fungus. So the disease has been proposed as a contributing factor to a global decline in amphibian populations. And one of those sources, believe it or not, are pesticides and poisons. So look, say what you want about frogs. Make fun of frogs all you want. Because look, admittedly, these endless shots of toads croaking is a bit of a joke. And I think, and the thing is, I think it's really weird that this movie does have this semi-serious ecological message, and yet I kind of wish they had brought on scientific advisors or ecological advisors that would have been. I mean, they could have gone a bit further and to try to make this a movie that foretold the future in terms of what this was. I mean, who knows? I don't think that this disease was known in the early 70s, but at the same time, when you look at this movie now, you think, oh, okay. I mean, obviously the toad. I almost said frogs. That's the thing. The movie is called Frogs, and they're just toads in the movie. It's ridiculous. But and here we have, of course, the first of two shirtless scenes with Sam Elliott, which of course caused all the rage and of course inspired Lifeguard, and then it ultimately inspired Baywatch. So Sam Elliott should be thanked by Baywatch fans all over the world. But at any rate, so here again, when I watched this as a kid, I completely got the interpretation that the toads the toads and the frogs were telling all the other animals, in their own way in the animal kingdom, that, hey, humans have destroyed our land and our habitats. We got to take revenge against these mofos. And, it's funny because in the 1970s, there were so many of these movies. I mean, of course, this was around the time that Earth Day was established. and people started to take a little bit more serious look at taking care of the environment. But of course, that has been curtailed in recent decades because of corporate greed, who refuse to bow down to any public pressure about how they're destroying the environment because they only care about their profits. In this case, this is basically more or less an isolated case. And, we're in a Florida, preserve somewhere. This millionaire, he has a mansion. He doesn't intend on leaving for any reason in the world. And he just wants to, live in peace and quiet and everything. But unfortunately, all the animals who share the land around him, of course, he refuses to acknowledge that, they become understandably upset. And yes, I think I can legitimately say this without, jokes being cracked. But yeah, of course. I mean, how would you feel if humans destroyed your habitat? I mean, it doesn't matter what animal you are. You could be a frog or a toad, a salamander, whatever the case may be. You would want to take revenge, take revenge against these humans. Excuse me. Now, this movie happens to be set on the 4th of July. Excuse me. Which also happens to be the birthday of Old Man Crockett. And yes, this is the great Ray Milland, who had started out in the silent era, actually. He had done another number of films in the silent era, but what he's known primarily for amongst most historians is, in the 30s he played, he was in a lot of character roles, like comedies like Easy Living and stuff like that. And he really came into being in 1945 with his lead acting performance in Billy Wilder's The Lost Weekend, which was a groundbreaking movie about alcoholism. Before they had, the production code had banned alcohol from the screen, just like they banned it during Prohibition practically. But I mean, Ray Milland, he's Welsh, and he's from Wales, and he was the very first Welsh actor to win the Academy Award for Best Actor for Frogs. No, just kidding. He won for The Lost Weekend. But honestly, everything I've read about Ray Milland when it comes to this movie is that he was miserable during it. Now, I mean, I don't know when this movie was shot, like during the year, but I can only imagine how humid and how hot it is. I mean, in fact, it's set during the 4th of July, so it's supposed to be like the absolute hottest it could be, Gee, I wonder if there's any other horror movies that are set during the 4th of July. Oh, yeah. The end of The Shining, yeah. Needless to say, The Shining is vastly superior to Frogs on a technical scale and otherwise. But Frogs, I gotta give Frogs some credit, because as a child, when I watched this movie, I was freaked out. I mean, these are animals that I never experienced before, largely on a movie screen. I think I saw this movie in elementary school. That's when you first learn about all these different species of animals that you happen to share the planet with. I mean, so this was all new to me. And obviously, I was smart enough to know, okay, you don't want to trespass with a snake, a poisonous snake or whatever. And there's a lot of snakes in this movie. There's a lot of spiders and other creepy crawly movie things, basically to kill the actors off. I mean, that's basically what this is all about. Sam Elliott, of course, is sort of the hero here. I mean, I love when they ask him what he does for a living, and he says he's a freelance photographer for an ecological magazine. It's like, that is so cool and hip for the 1970s. That's like, to be as hunky as Sam Elliott is with that job title. Oh man, Oh, he would have been the ultimate ladies' man in the 1970s. Trust me. I mean, hell, I mean, probably because of that magazine gig and all that, he probably could have ended up in the Playboy Mansion. Who knows? But well, like I said, there was a lot of growing sentiment and attention being placed on not harming the environment. And that, of course, is the central message and theme that is flowing through this movie. Now, I mean, these shots are devastating, okay? I don't know how to explain it any other way, but okay, I mean, we get the idea, okay, yeah, they've been spraying this poison because they're getting tired of the toad croaks. I mean, come on. Just for something as stupid as that. I mean, you can't destroy all these creatures and not expect some kind of repercussion from nature. I don't really find this all that laughable. I find this actually quite serious. I mean, and I'm not trying to emerge as a tree hugger here or anything. And, because look, I mean, I also agreed with what George Carlin said that, we shouldn't be worried about a few plastic bags or whatever. I mean, the earth is fine. I mean, it'll shake us off like a bunch of fleas eventually, with climate change and global warming and all this stuff. This, however, it's a needless destruction of land and species. It's needless destruction. Just because these rich folks cannot stand noises or the eccentricities of these animals as they share the environment with them. Oh boy. And as you can see, we've come upon the dead body of the man Crockett was sending out to literally poison the environment. He's covered in snakes. Although he still seems to be breathing. I don't know if that I don't know if he's officially dead here, but he's oh God. Anybody who is scared of snakes and these other kind of animals will want to look away, might get a little squirmy for you. I don't think it's any different than most other animal films from this time. I mean, obviously, arguably the best of this genre of these animal attack movies was, of course, Jaws, which came out in 1975, became a global phenomenon, and of course, Universal has been trying to, resurrect the Jaws formula in recent years. I honestly think that they should go in the direction of getting Richard Dreyfuss back, regardless of whatever they do for Jaws 5. I think the bottom line is they should bring Richard Dreyfuss back as Hooper, and I think that would make a nice conclusion to the Jaws franchise. I mean, we don't need a lot more movies on it, particularly when I actually agree with the author Peter Benchley that that Jaws kind of gave sharks a bad name, and like all the animals in this movie, these are creatures that we need to preserve, that we need to protect. But rich people don't give a shit. Okay, they just want to drink their fucking alcohol, and they don't care. They don't care. It's like you're nuisances. Go away. I mean, like. Yeah, I mean okay. Interestingly enough, these two women right here. I mean, this is a very short scene, and we'll see them in a few other scenes later in the movie. But they were the one on the right. Her name is Judy Pace, and the one on the left is named Mae Mercer. And Mae Mercer was a opera singer for many years. She only has a handful of scenes in this movie, but this movie doesn't have a very big cast. I mean, like I said, you got Ray Milland and Sam Elliott to lead everything off, but all the other actors are mainly from television. I mean, hell, George McCowan is a television director himself, and it makes me wonder if it wasn't for Ray Milland and even American International Pictures, this could have easily been a movie of the week for television, because I mean, it's such a simple story with a with a very isolated setting. And, even for a 90-minute movie, I think this movie kind of drags at certain points. I mean, they went the right route in trying to keep the brevity here with the running time, but at the same time, there are moments like sort of like this where they're all just sitting around talking, like, okay, like you just, as a kid, you just want to see more of the animals. You almost don't you almost don't care what the grown-ups have to say. And yes, there's a couple of kids in this movie, but they're barely on screen. I mean, they're only in danger very briefly at the very, very end. Now, I mean, of course, one of the big things about this movie is, of course, there's a lot of toads in it, but they basically acquired so many toads for this production, but the problem is they ended up losing them all because they just hopped away. It's not a joke. I mean, yes, I mean it's funny, but yes, it's true. I mean, they basically just hopped off set and they weren't able to be scrounged up later. So in essence, this movie is like a giant um moment of freedom for all these toads that are let out into the wild. I mean, I guess on that aspect that there's a benefit there. And of course, the phone isn't working. Did the animals tamper with the phone? Are the animals really that smart? I mean, and of course, Ray Milland is just let's put it this way. His performance here is really, he's just playing a grumpy old man, basically. And, of course, when you realize that he was miserable during the production, he was so miserable that he actually left 3 days early. And so at the end of the movie, when he's supposed to be, on the ground, and all the frogs hop all over him, that's actually a stunt double. That's actually a double. When he ultimately gets attacked by the frogs at the end of the movie. I mean, yes. I mean, frogs only attack Ray Milland at the end, and even then they just hop all over him. Here again, if there were poisonous frogs, I think there would be a bit more tension there that would have been, legitimate. I mean, but think about it. This is a guy that won an Oscar for The Lost Weekend. And this late in his career, he's 65 here. He's playing in a movie where at the end that he gets jumped on by a bunch of toads. I mean, I can understand that there could have been some humiliation there. Because after Lost Weekend, he had directed stuff in the 50s, for television, and had a very distinguished career up until his death in 1986. But one of Ray Milland's least well-known movies, at least from my perspective, is a movie that I happened to catch on Turner Classic Movies one day called Rhubarb. And it's not about the vegetable, but rhubarb is the name of a tabby cat who inherits a baseball team, a third-rate Brooklyn Loons baseball team. And Ray Milland is basically his caretaker. And it's actually a very funny movie because, of course, Ray Milland's wife is, of course, allergic to cats. And so there's a lot of humor involving the cat. And, of course, a lot of the ball players actually look at the cat as basically a sign of good luck. One of them, in fact, is played by Leonard Nimoy in only his second movie. If you can try to seek that out, look for Rhubarb with Ray Milland. It's actually very funny. And when I actually read the book that the movie was based on, which came out about 4 or 5 years before the movie in 1951, which was distributed by Paramount, in the late 40s, when the Rhubarb book came out, there was actually a line in there where the characters said that they were going to go see a Ray Milland picture. And I think it was even implied that it was The Lost Weekend. I could be wrong, but I mean, that's the Ray Milland film that I really enjoy returning to. I mean, Rhubarb, it's a very underrated, unknown movie. And like I said, you'd probably be lucky to catch it on Turner Classic Movies. But Ray Milland, he still has, he did like 100 movies at this time. by the time of Frogs when he did AIP. Now, the other film that he did in 1972 for AIP, I do plan on doing later in the year in July to celebrate the 50th anniversary of that. And I've never seen it, and everything I've heard from it is it's about as infamous as it gets. In 1972, Ray Milland made another movie for AIP called The Thing with Two Heads, where he plays a doctor, and he arrives at a mansion as a passenger in a wheelchair. Probably just strolled off of this movie. But anyway, once inside, Kirshner asks if his experiment has been a success and is told by an orderly that it had been. He is taken to the basement where the experiment is in fact a two-headed gorilla, played by Rick Baker of all people, that Dr. Kirshner has created. The experiment is to determine whether two heads can survive on a single body. Dr. Kirshner has done this because he has not much longer to live and wants to transplant his still living head from his lifeless body onto a donor that he may continue living and continue working as the world's most successful surgeon. And Dr. Kirshner returns to his hospital institute to oversee an operation performed by his close friend and associate, Dr. Philip Desmond, played by Roger Perry. And he returns to the basement in his two-headed gorilla to remove one of the heads from its body. He orders his assistants to sedate the creature, but plans go airy when the creature is upset about the needle and knocks Dr. Kirshner out of his wheelchair, hurting him badly. It then proceeds to smash up the lab and escapes. The creature runs away and into a supermarket, chased by the assistants, where he is caught. And he hires a new doctor to help Desmond when he discovers that Dr. Women is a African American. He tells William that he's no longer needed, to which Williams takes great offense. So the thing with two heads, there's a white head played by Ray Milland and a black head played by Roger Perry. I have heard so many infamous things about this movie. I have to do it. I have to do a commentary later in the year. So in July, expect a commentary for the AIP feature, The Thing with Two Heads, starring Ray Milland and Rosie Greer. I think it's going to be quite spectacular. There's not much of a romance in this movie. I mean, they don't really push anything between Sam Elliott and Joan Van Ark here. As I said, before we started the movie, that on the Scream Factory Blu-ray, which actually they released this as a double feature with The Food of the Gods, the Burt I. Gordon film, which I guess is appropriate. But the main thing about that double feature set is that Frogs has a 10-minute interview with Joan Van Ark, who is on screen here. And from what I understand, she basically does say that Sam Elliott was like a total hunk to work with. And indeed, there's a lot of great-looking people in this movie. I mean, the women and men. There's a lot of good-looking people in this movie. I mean, Ray Milland is, older, but, But, I mean, considering the fact this only played in drive-ins, I can't imagine more adults going to see this movie than children. I have a feeling that a lot of parents took kids to see Frogs in the theater. And of course, it has a very misleading marketing campaign, which AIP put out. Now, on the actual poster, it actually has the tagline, "Today the pond, tomorrow the world." And it actually shows a frog, a real frog, with a human hand out of his mouth, as if the frog had swallowed the entire human body, and everything. Now, as misleading as that marketing is, that poster was very misleading because everybody, of course, thought this was just going to be a killer frog movie, which, of course, it's not. I mean, basically, all these toads are instructing the rest of the creatures in nature to attack these humans up until the end, of course. But the crazy thing is that the poster, when you see the hand outside of the frog's mouth, There's actually a shot in this movie that has that, and I'll point it out when it comes. But it's kind of an Easter egg, and I'm not sure audiences in 1972 even noticed this, but just bear with me. I mean, when we get near the end of the movie, I'll say where it comes from. But yeah, this actress right here, her name is Mae Mercer, and she was a blues singer, and she had done other films. She actually only done a handful of movies from the 1970s. I mean, but she did do two movies with Clint Eastwood. She did The Beguiled, which of course is actually considering the fact I'm not really a fan of Clint Eastwood. The Beguiled is really very good, and Clint's very good in it. He plays a Civil War soldier who ends up on injured and on this southern plantation where he seduces all the women in this all female boarding school or whatever. And it was actually remade in just a few years ago with Sofia Coppola. But I actually prefer the original, directed by Don Siegel and starring Clint Eastwood. Well, Mae Mercer has a bit part in that as Hallie, and she also is in Dirty Harry as Mrs. Russell. She later did 2 episodes of Kung Fu, The Swinging Cheerleaders, and finally Pretty Baby, which of course is the infamous movie where Brooke Shields appeared naked at 12 years old. I've seen the movie. I didn't think the nudity was necessary at all, but that's what the movie is infamous for. So Mae Mercer only did a handful of movies in the 60s and 70s. Oh God, this dialogue. I mean, that's the thing. Joan Van Ark, I mean, of course, did soap operas, and of course, it makes me think that this whole scene plays like a soap opera. Like, yeah, I thought about coming to your room last night. And then we have a shot of a gecko. I had a gecko and a water monitor. I mean, yeah, very very romantic stuff here. I mean, yeah, there just wasn't a lot of room for a romance or a love story to be developed anywhere here. Give me just one moment here. I want to bring this up real quick. So here they're just getting prepared for these games like croquet and everything. And beating somebody off a log with a pillow. That's apparently this guy's game of choice. Now, okay. Now, Ray Milland also wore a toupee throughout filming, and apparently the temperatures were so hot and he sweated so much that it fell off his head several times. I don't know if you can catch it anywhere in the movie, but that's something to keep in mind right there too. Now, I also love. There's a couple of other trivia bits from IMDb I wanted to share with you. The Florida Holiday Inn, used by the crew, would not allow the poisonous snakes, spiders, or black scorpions used in the film to be brought into the hotel. Can you blame them? Seriously, can you blame them? uh, a bedroom scene in which Bella asks Kenneth to take her home was scripted and shot but cut from the movie. Photographs of the scene featuring a bare-chested Nicholas Cortland smoking a joint were released with the film's press material. Huh, interesting. The large black and white lizards that attack Kenneth in the greenhouse are tegus, native to Argentina. Several geckos and iguanas were also used for this scene. Now, here's the one trivia bit that kind of blows my mind, because earlier I mentioned The Shining, because these are both films that are set on the 4th of July. Stephen King has mentioned this movie as the reason he decided on a topiary instead of a hedge maze in The Shining. Stanley Kubrick, of course, could not get the topiary to work to his satisfaction, so he went to the hedge maze himself. Wow. And and they actually have this in the trivia section. The bite of the water moccasin can indeed be fatal. Really? Oh my God. Yeah, and in case you don't know, there's 4 poisonous snakes in the United States. There's the rattlesnake, the water moccasin, or I guess cottonmouth, of course, is the ultimate alternate name for it. The copperhead, as well as the coral snake. If I'm not mistaken, those are the 4. But most of the poisonous frogs that are in the world are, of course, down in the tropical areas, like the rainforest and everything. Those were like the cute frogs that you normally see, instead of these ugly toads, which which predominantly take over the screen. Now, see, I mean, I wish I had like an expert on me that could tell me, okay, well, what snake is that? I mean, what are the different species names for all these animals? Because unfortunately I cannot provide those. I wish I could. I mean, those are things that I wish I could identify, but I just can't, unfortunately. So this was all shot in northern Florida. It was entirely shot in northern Florida. And yes, that is a real rattlesnake right there. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if if we see that rattlesnake later when another character meets their doom. But I'm pretty certain we see that rattlesnake in later scenes. I was going to say real quick. I mean, probably I actually thought about reaching out to Chandler, who does this show on YouTube, Chandler's Wildlife, because I thought to myself, man, he would be the perfect guy to have on here to do a commentary with for frogs. I mean, if only just to get all these species identified. I mean, yeah, these are pretty ugly toads. I mean, they're not scary in the slightest. But look, frogs, I can't even say it's the worst animal attack movie that came out in 1972, because if you want the worst of the worst that came out in this little genre that came out in the 70s, you need to check out Night of the Lepus, which MGM put out in 1972, starring Stuart Whitman and Janet Leigh from Psycho, of all things, and DeForest Kelley, who plays Bones on Star Trek. And Night of the Lepus is about these giant white bunnies that just, they terrorize a small town, which is really just miniatures. A lot of the scenes in the movie, you see these bunny rabbits just going through miniatures. It's hilarious. I mean, and I love what Leonard Maltin said in his book about Night of the Lepus. He said, they called the National Guard, but not Elmer Fudd. I mean, but frogs, I think frogs does have, here again, a legitimate message, unlike something like Night of the Lepus, which is just drive-in, fodder crap. I mean, frogs, I think, is much more, at the very least, a lot more entertaining. And here again, I do think that the serious message should be taken seriously. I mean, it's not a joke that we are losing populations of frogs and toads and other animals all over the country, and it's sad. Okay, now these are tarantulas and a lot of Spanish moss. I don't know. I honestly don't know what the hell is going on here, but I mean, all these. All the Spanish moss is falling down because apparently the tarantulas are making it fall down so he could be tangled up and caught, and so the tarantulas could bite them. Well, look, let's just get it out of the way right now. Tarantulas, yes, they look horrible. They're hairy. They're ugly. They are not poisonous. If you were going to get bit by a tarantula, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. yes, they do have venom, but it's not harmful to humans. But of course, back in the 70s, if you wanted to freak out an audience, oh yeah, just put some tarantulas in the frame. And the thing is, when people think of killer spider movies, they tend to think of either like Eight-Legged Freaks, which came out in 2002, or of course Arachnophobia. No, if you want to get the quintessential killer spider movie, I swear to God, 1977's Kingdom of the Spiders, starring William Shatner. That is, without a doubt, the best killer spider movie out there. And even though they're all tarantulas, all right, and in the movie they invent the whole notion that these tarantulas are now 5 times as aggressive as they were before, whatever. But I mean, but there are some shocking moments in that movie. I mean, you see a guy in a cockpit with spiders all over him. You see somebody actually shoot a spider off of their hand. Yeah. I mean, and you also see like the lead actress pick up a tarantula and pet it like a pussycat. I mean, no, seriously. I mean, Kingdom of the Spiders is a great nature attacks thriller from the 70s. Definitely one of the best ones. And I know that same year we also had Day of the Animals with Christopher George. And of course, he had also starred in Grizzly, which was dubbed as Jaws with Claws when that came out in 1976. But yeah, get Kingdom of the Spiders with William Shatner. I mean, and the last time I watched it, it was so hilarious because I watched it with one of my Twitter buddies doing a live, not a live stream of it, but a live text, live tweet thing, whatever. I can't, whatever. I've already lost it. But no, we were watching the movie together on Twitter and chatting about it on Twitter. And I realized that William Shatner, in one scene of the movie, he has over 50 tarantulas all over his body. Credit where credit is due, man. Not a lot of actors can take that. But what's also hilarious about that is that they use library music from the 1967 animated Spider-Man series. I mean, look, why didn't we ever get William Shatner to play Spider-Man? Oh, that would have been incredible, wouldn't it? There was also a lot of lizards in this movie. I mean, I didn't know geckos were native to Florida. I mean, I've honestly only been to Florida a couple times in my life, but I would really, I don't know. These geckos. Yeah. Oh, do a timestamp real quick. We are approximately at 49 minutes. Thank you all for joining me tonight. We are approximately at the 49-minute mark of Frogs. Great to see you, Christian Stone. Dude, I'm obsessed with this movie. Hey, look, I've had a soft spot for Frogs ever since I saw it in an automobile. My parents were getting their oil changed or something, and they were getting mechanical work done in their car. And Frogs was playing in the waiting room where all the coffee and donuts were. So I watched this in elementary school, on this stupid little TV in the corner of this waiting room in a auto dealership. And it was quite the experience seeing all these animals attack all these humans. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, would you all be comfortable calling this an animal slasher movie? I would. I love this era of creature feature. An obscure little TV movie called Tarantulas, the Deadly Cargo is hitting Blu-ray from Kino later this year. Oh, wonderful. Yeah, I've heard of that one, but I still haven't seen it yet. Now, I was going to say, Sam Elliott has been popping up in several different big films lately. Thank you very much, Dan. Yeah, if you like the commentary so far, please smash the like button. But of course, I mean, I've already made my fair share of mistakes during this commentary that I won't be able to go back and fix. But anyway, but I'm glad that Frogs does have a tiny fan base out there that recognizes it as something more than just a silly eco horror. That, I mean, look, I mean, yeah, we see a lot of shots of toads just croaking. Okay. I mean, like I said, I mean, there's probably, I mean, in the deleted footage of this movie, there's probably nothing but shots of the Florida wildlife. But yeah, this was the film debut of Joan Van Ark, and yeah. Unfortunately, I can't think of anything more else to say about Sam Elliott and Joan Van Ark here. But let me throw this. I think this is a perfect time to actually throw this out here, because considering everything I've talked about earlier about the disease, the fungal disease that is killing off the frog and toad populations, why not do a remake of this movie? Why not do a remake of Frogs, where we actually give it a bit more scientific, a bit more of a scientific legitimacy surrounding it. We could use that. We could use those ideas of, what is harming the frog population, and say, well, look, humans need to stop using these pesticides. And I think this movie could easily be remade today, but it could also be done without audiences mocking it. I mean, I just have a feeling that the title really works to the film's it doesn't work to the film's advantage at all. I mean, here again, a lot of what we see are toads, not frogs. But going beyond that, um, I mean, we could really address some real world issues in a remake, and we can make them legitimately scary and legitimately alarming. That would, I mean, it could honestly even increase the intensity levels of certain scenes and everything, because this is just, as dated as this is, it still comes across as just, okay, you have all these shots of these animals, and you're dealing with the actors is basically pretending to die at the hands of these animals that somehow have gotten clever enough to know what can kill these humans, and is taking advantage of all their vulnerabilities at this moment. I mean, you know, you don't have to buy everything that's on the screen necessarily, but at the same time, I still love the idea of, nature getting back against the human population for all its bullshit. I mean, I love and celebrate that, actually. In this movie, I root for the frogs. That's not a joke. I root for the frogs in this movie. Now, when he dies, when that guy dies, I mean, basically, okay, they know that this has gotten into a serious situation that they don't think they can handle. It's probably time to uh, get out while the getting's good, evidently. But of course, Ray Milan is too much of a crotchety old fart to even, consider. And look, to be fair to him, he is in a wheelchair, so he doesn't want to leave his home. But at the same time, he's going to have to suffer the consequences of his actions. And if there's anything I want to see, if there's any group of people that I want to see suffer the consequences for actions and being held accountable, it's the rich. Whether it's in terms of financially raping the country, or destroying the country through environmental means, just for their own sick. I mean, wasn't it like, what was the story that came out recently of Elon Musk? He just built like I don't know, like a $1 billion super boat or whatever, and he's telling the town that he built in that they have to destroy this old bridge from World War II that honors all their fallen dead and everything, saying, yeah, we got to destroy this bridge just so we can take out this $50 billion super boat. I mean, come on. I mean, seriously, how the rich think they can get away with anything they want, and it just it pisses me off. It pisses me off. I think that's part of the reason why this movie has kind of appealed to me over time, because here again, I can see a lot of people look at this as a very silly, low budget AIP flick. I mean, okay, they brought out that beautiful cake, that beautiful Independence Day cake with the flag on it, just to have a bunch of frogs hop on it. I mean, I love it. I love it. It's ridiculous, but I love it. Oh, thanks, John. I appreciated that. Tweeted you a couple of frogs movie marquees from '72. Awesome. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. And glad to see you out here for the commentary tonight. Now, of course, the servants are thinking about getting out while the getting's good. I mean, they're pretty much made up their mind that they better get the hell out of there as soon as possible. And of course, more shots of croaking toads. Yes, we have all these endless shots of croaking toads. Now I'm not sure. I got confused about the family relations when it came to this family, and here again, I don't think ultimately it really matters. But this death right here, I think I always found the most intense and shocking. I mean, I'm not sure how they do it. I wish I could explain it, but they actually do show a snake actually going out and biting what is probably a dummy, but they actually do have a snake, a rattlesnake actually strike something that is supposed to be her, but here again, it's probably just a double or a dummy. More Spanish moss. Yeah, that uh, there's a lot of Spanish moss in this movie, and there's just a lot of animals in this movie. I still think my favorite trivia bit though is the fact that all the toads just hopped away. They just hopped away from the production, and they couldn't get them back. But I mean, seriously, I mean, any horror hounds out there, I would seriously think about go out there and write a sequel to this. Sorry, a remake of Frogs. I think it could work in today's climate. I mean, here again, when I saw this as a kid, I found none of this, hardly intimidating, except for the snake bite. That was the one thing that actually got me as a kid, was the snake bite. Everything else was just like, oh, this animal and this animal, more frogs, more toads, whatever. Yeah, they're so noisy, we just have to kill them all. I mean, humans are so evil. Here again, I wish I could identify these species of snakes, but unfortunately I can't. It's obvious when she comes upon the rattlesnake. I mean, they probably use the same rattlesnake for all these movies. Well, I guess there is a water moccasin somewhere, because it actually says in the IMDb trivia section that yes, the bite of a water moccasin can indeed be fatal. Oh yeah. And going back to the tarantulas, I really wish they could have used something more intimidating and scary, like black widows. That would have been scary. I mean, the tarantulas, making the Spanish moss consume the guy, it is a little ridiculous. It is a little ridiculous. I mean, I would have preferred a where he gets like caught in like a black widow's nest or something like that. That would have been a lot more scary. I mean, just to have a black widow or something pop up out of nowhere and just bite it in the shoulder, or a scorpion for that matter. I mean, scorpion went up somebody's leg. That would have been scary enough, I think. Excuse me a moment. Yep, trying to get through all this Spanish moss in Florida can be a doozy, couldn't it? George McCowan, I don't, I was trying to think of what I could say about the director, George McCowan, that actually could. I looked up his resume earlier, and I just found it to be. He's a Canadian film director, and he worked for the Canadian Broadcasting Company. He actually directed episodes of Charlie's Angels, SWAT, Starsky and Hutch, Mod Squad, Heart to Heart, stuff like that. He directed the 1970 TV movie Carter's Army, the 1971 Canadian hockey film Face Off, the fourth and final Magnificent Seven film, The Magnificent Seven Ride, in 1972, the same year as Frogs, and the 1976 film Shadow of the Hawk. And he also directed the film based on H.G. Wells' book The Shape of Things to Come, and the 1970 television war movie The Challenge. But the latter he chose to be credited as Alan Smithy. And he died in 1995 due to emphysema, very sadly. He was 68. But I guess he just made his mark in television. This was one of the few feature films that he did. Okay, now every time I see this, I just, she just falls right in front of the snake and just basically lets the snake bite her. Here again, when I was a kid, this was a lot more scary and intimidating. And then you look at it now, okay, she manages to turn blue within a few minutes, and then the close-up of the toad's eye. Okay. Here again, laugh at it all you want, mock it all you want, but I think this movie, in its own icky way, I think it does accomplishes its goal. I honestly think it does, which is to basically shine a light on the ecology of the 1970s as to what the human race was doing to the environment. I think it does succeed in that regard. Although the fact that they speed up the camera here or they speed up the footage for this crocodile to keep. Now, admittedly, though, I can't help but admit that if I was out there in the middle of nowhere and I was surrounded by alligators and crocodiles, it would be scary. It would be totally scary. A year after Frogs came out, actually is one of the most famous sequences in all of film involving alligators and crocodiles, when Roger Moore actually walked up all over those crocs and Live and Let Die. That's a great, great stunt sequence. Now here, though, I don't know what he just dives into the water, which is black, probably from oil or something, and he starts wrestling with this alligator. Why? Why does he start wrestling with the damn alligator? It makes no sense. Most people would probably have the sense, okay, just run. You may not make it out of there, but just run. I don't know. What is this? Like I said, all you had to do was run, dude. All you had to do was run. Okay, so we are officially at 1 hour and 5 minutes. 1 hour and 5 minutes. If you want to jump ahead to that timestamp, we got about 25 minutes left of the movie. That's the thing. Is there much else to say about Frogs that hasn't been said already? When Ray Milland asks for his drink, you just think of the Lost Weekend. It's the Lost Weekend all over again when it comes to Ray Milland here. I think John would agree with me. I think we'd rather be watching Rhubarb. Uh, but I will say, Judy Pace. Oh man, what a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful woman right there. Yeah, in fact, I don't think I talked about much about Judy Pace. I know I talked about Mae Mercer, but I didn't say much about Judy Pace. Just real quick here. Yeah, she did a lot of black exploitation films. She was in Peyton Place, and she won an Image Award for Outstanding Actress in the drama series The Young Lawyers from 1969 to 1971. Let's see. In 1972, the same year as Frogs, she married the actor Don Mitchell, and they had two daughters together before their divorce in '84. And in terms of her filmography, she did episodes of Batman, Bewitched, Days of Our Lives, The Flying Nun, I Dream of Genie, Mod Squad again. Yeah, and she was also in Kung Fu and Good Time. So here again, I mean, a lot of these actors only really made their mark in television, but I mean, considering what they're given here, I mean, I think they go ahead scot free. I'm actually glad that all the supposedly all the black characters in this movie survive, although we don't really we don't see. I mean, there's supposed to be a bird attack, but they don't really have the birds. It doesn't show the birds actually attacking them, and they kind of superimpose the birds over them running away in one shot. But yeah, I mean, all the black characters are like, "Oh, we're out of here, man. We don't care anymore. we're tired of the frogs. We're tired of the deaths. We don't care. We're getting the hell out now." Which I would have been right there with them. I'll tell you that. I'll definitely tell you that. And I'd flirt with Judy Pace every step of the way back to civilization, to be honest. Yeah, I love her. I love. I oh, look. I mean, the costumes in this movie are nondescript. I mean, but look, Judy Pace is probably wearing the most memorable outfit in the movie. I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing. So that leaves behind the star of the Lost Weekend with The Stranger and Spider Woman and Adam Rourke. I've never seen any of those biker films from AIP, but well, actually, AIP is. We should talk about AIP for a little bit because they made their mark in the 1950s. I mean, they put out movies like The Fast and the Furious and Hot Rod Girl, and all these drive-in relics that only teenagers seem to see. And in fact, in the late 1950s, they were actually in dire straits for a while, and they would only release Italian exploitation pictures. But in the early 60s, they started to come around as a studio because that's when they started the Edgar Allan Poe series with Vincent Price, starting with the House of Usher in 1960. And they would do more biker films and stuff like that. I mean, Roger Corman movies. Roger Corman did a lot of movies through AIP. And AIP, believe it or not, has just been resurrected only a couple years ago. Orion Pictures was resurrected about 5 years ago, and then strangely enough, MGM actually brought AIP back as a distribution company just in the past 2 years. The first movie they put out in 2021 was a movie starring Allison Janney. I forget the name of it, but yeah, AIP is back in business, and I think the executive producers of Arkoff and Nicholson would have been very, very happy that their baby is now back in the spotlight. But and they're still using the same logo apparently, which admittedly I think is a kind of a cool logo. Now, see, okay, all this stuff right here is actually pretty good. I mean, look, they see what's going on. They know that things are wrong. Something's up. Something's not right here. This is all fairly effective stuff, and just in terms of telling the story visually. They walk around. They see what's happening here. It's just not right. This is not right at all. And that's when, of course, they start hearing these birds, which, if they were trying for a bird attack scene and just decided to abandon it, because we're not certain if these characters actually survive, if they actually make it out of the Florida swamps. But the birds kind of, I guess, chased them away. Well, it certainly wasn't the frogs that are hopping around here, but yeah, love me some rhubarb. Definitely love me some rhubarb. Yeah, I think Ray Milland at this point was kind of missing working with that tabby cat. It's like, I got to work up with a bunch of frogs, damn it. Oh, Sam Elliott with a shotgun. he's holding it. I'm not going to go there. But the way he's holding the gun. Let's see. We got about what do we have? Like 20 minutes left here. Yeah, we got approximately 18 minutes left, and we just gotta wrap this up. I mean, let's kill off these last few characters. I mean, that's the thing. If this was a 74-minute movie of the week, I actually think it would have played a little bit better. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I honestly think this would have played better as a 74-minute movie of the week rather than a theatrical release. Because, like I said, I mean, look, let's be honest here. Ray Milland doesn't really offer much except marquee value here. Yep, just go ahead and jump in the water there. Now, are those water moccasins? I don't know, but it doesn't matter because we never see the snakes and the people in the same shot. So where they were shot at different locations, probably on different days and everything. Like I said, I can't help but think that before any of the actors arrived for shooting, that they must have just went out and just shot a bunch of nature footage. I mean, it's the only explanation because we rarely ever see a human being in the same shot with like any of the poisonous animals like the snakes or whatever. But, just surround them with a bunch of frogs. That's all you need, right? Yeah, this death is pretty stupid. It's not like you're being attacked by a shark, buddy. And of course, she's just going to get in the water here. Oh, I don't think I talked about this actress yet. Her name is Lynne Borden, who plays Jenny Crockett. And let's see. She did uncredited bits in movies like Days of Wine and Roses and The Carpetbaggers, What a Way to Go. And then in 1969, she played Cutter in Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice. And then in 1972, the same year as Frog, she also did The Great Northfield, Minnesota Raid. And later, she would be in Black Mama, White Mama, and Walking Tall in 1973, as well as Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry in 1974. And like the rest of the cast, she did a bunch of television work for like The Fugitive, Family Affair, Get Smart, The FBI, Chips. The last episode she did was in 2006. Oh, this is actually interesting, is that Lynne Borden, it says that the last episode that she did was The Fall Guy in 1982. But in 2006, she actually came back on television for one episode in CSI New York as elderly woman with dog. And she sadly passed away in 2015. Oh, see, look, he's drinking. It's Lost Weekend all over again. Milland. Uh, yeah, let's. I think we should do a double feature of Lost Weekend and Rhubarb instead of watching Frogs again. Oh, really? In New York City in July of 1972, Frogs was issued on a double bill with Godzilla versus the Smog Monster. Yeah, yeah, a perfect double bill there, I should say so. And so they're finally going to leave the old Crockett plantation. They're going to leave the patriarch Ray Milland there because he's just too stubborn to leave. He's too stubborn to get out, even though he's going to be all alone. He's disabled. It's just him and his dog. Like I said, decent cast. I mean, they're just not given much to do, which is really a shame. I still can't get over Sam Elliott without a mustache. It's just really weird. It is admittedly really weird to see him without a mustache in this movie. Like I said, 28 years old. He was a fresh 28 when he made this movie, and he's now 78. Now, this climax where they're trying to escape on the water, it's not very exciting. But I guess if you want to see anybody survive this movie, it's the kids and Sam Elliott and Joan Van Ark. So I guess they leave kind of like a family, kind of like a brand new family there, just getting away from a bunch of murderous frogs. Oh, I mean, I guess you could interpret this a number of ways. I mean, does he feel guilt about what he did, and he's just going to let whatever happens, let it happen? I mean, I guess he's just kind of giving up. And all this had to happen on his birthday, Independence Day. All had to happen on his birthday. The frogs ruined his damn birthday. And see, there's the last of them escaping. All the frogs and toads out there on the porch. They're all over the place. More dead bodies. They finally discover all the other dead bodies here. Uh, yeah, I mean, what I think we're in the home stretch here. We're at, I guess that's supposed to be a large snapping turtle, but this is we are now attacked by a bunch of crabs. Ugh. Here again, I have to question: are those crabs native to Florida? I'm just not so sure. I'm not so sure about that. But anyway, we are officially now at the 1 hour and 20-minute mark. Approximately 10 minutes left to go. 10 minutes of frog left to go. Yeah, so we got to deal with about 100 more croaks till we reach the end of the movie. I mean, they're taking forever to get out of here. I'm sorry. I mean, I understand. You have to take this canoe out and everything, but man, you are taking way too much damn time. Uh, I wonder how much he's going to write for that ecology magazine about what happened here. Like I said, that hip new job of the 1970s is to be a a freelance photographer for an ecology magazine. I mean, come on. How much more sexy can you get? But of course, we're about to showcase how much more sexy that is, because here he is taking his shirt off again. And as I said before, it is because of Sam Elliott taking his shirt off in this movie Frogs. It's the reason why he got the job in Lifeguard, and it's the reason why we ended up with 20 seasons of Baywatch. I don't know. I've never watched Baywatch in my life. I'm not really a David Hasselhoff guy, but yeah, I mean, it is because of Sam Elliott taking his shirt off in Frogs that we got Baywatch. You know, the influences, you never know. You never know. Watch Sam Elliott kill a bunch of snakes. Yeah. Take that, you water moccasin. So that is the exciting climax of Frogs. What did he do? He didn't do anything except hit a couple of snakes with a paddle. Oh, man. Oh, God. Now, of course, what's funny is this also came out the same year as what is probably the best horror film of 1972, which is Deliverance, of course. You know, where Burt Reynolds and John Voight and all of them, they discover out in the middle of nowhere a couple of guys who just wanted to make them squeal like a pig. And we will be doing a commentary on Deliverance later on this year. Another couple of toads and a monitor. I mean, yeah, I mean, doesn't really heighten the suspense levels, doesn't it? It just doesn't do much. So, you know, in summary, I think Frogs is actually a kind of a guilty pleasure, because look, the writing is weak. I can see kids watching this as a gateway to horror films, which I think is perfectly reasonable. I mean, here again, it's not too much for kids to watch. And here again, I really do appreciate the ecological message. I actually do appreciate the ecological message very much. I just wish that it had been a bit more scientifically accurate. And here again, this is something that we could explore in a remake. And yes, I would consider doing a remake of Frogs. Hell, AIP is back. Why not go to AIP with a script with a remake of Frogs and be like, hey, we can do this again. We can make this a little bit more vicious, a little bit more sharp and everything. We can make it better. Who knows? Maybe Sam Elliott would want to do it. That could be his retirement role. He's been wanting to get revenge on those frogs for all these years. He's been wanting to get revenge on the frogs for 50 years, and now he's back. Why not? Why not? Now, I mentioned earlier, and this is pretty much the last thing that's going to be discussed before the movie is over, but I mentioned before that the poster, the infamous poster, which was very misleading, it showed a real frog with a human hand coming out of its mouth. Now, we don't see that anywhere in the movie, and of course, no frogs eat any of the humans in the movie. But at the same time, at the end of the when the end credits are done, when the end credits are done and over with, there is actually an animated frog that comes out with a human hand and swallows it and hops off the screen. Now, that is after the end credits. This is the very last sequence where Ray Milland is finally realizing that the frogs have turned off his music and they're about to go in for the quote unquote kill. Which, like I said, I mean, they basically just hop all over him. They don't do much here. But like I said before, Ray Milland actually was not present for these final shots where you see a body on the ground. Who it is, a stunt double probably, who knows. But it is not Ray Milland on the floor when the frogs come and hop all over him. It's just not him. It's the Lost Weekend all over again. This guy won't stop drinking. Well, admittedly, I mean, if a bunch of frogs were surrounding me, I'd be like, I might as well have a drink too. Why not? So, I mean, here again, as a kid, none of this scared me. None of this scared me whatsoever. But it was still kind of fun and entertaining to watch on its low budget level of mediocrity. Yeah, this is a very weird bit that the phone rings, but nobody's on the line. Did one of the toads make a call to him? That's how smart these toads have become. And then now they're just trolling him. Now they're just totally trolling him. It actually suggests that a frog makes a phone call. It actually implies that. It's like, we got you, man. We got you. Ribbit, 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 croak, croak, croak. We got you, and we're going to jump all over you, and you're done. You are done, my friend. This is what you get for killing all our family members and the rest of the animals in the kingdom that we that we are a part of as well. Why not? Yeah. And so close-ups of the taxidermy. It's not very shocking, but I guess they were just trying to showcase how much what he's going through right now, which is just kind of silly, but ribbit, 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 ribbit. it's so death by ribbits. That's a way to go right there. Vincent Canby reviewed Frogs for the New York Times, but Village Voice chose to ignore it, instead reviewing Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde and Blood from the Mummy's Tomb that week. That's great. That is great. Oh, John, thank you so much for that information. That is amazing. Yeah, okay, that is not Ray Milland. That is just not Ray Milland. That looks like a younger guy. And the lights go out, and that's the end of the movie. Yep. And here we have our cast right here. Ray Milland, Sam Elliott, Joan Van Ark, Adam Warwick, and Judy Pace, and Lynne Borden and Mae Mercer. We all talked about them. The rest of the actors are basically unknowns here. So yeah, that's the 1972 ecological horror film Frogs. And yes, don't go anywhere, guys, because we are coming up here on a little Easter egg shot entirely on location in Eden Park Historical Museum, Florida, an American international picture. And then I don't think, look, a frog just comes on screen, swallows a human hand, and that's the end of the movie. Now, am I wrong? Is this the very first movie to have something past the end credits? Like some kind of scene or some kind of bit or some kind of joke? Because the earliest one I remember is Airplane, where the SWAT team, they're still waiting outside, and they said, okay, we'll give them 10 more minutes, then we're going in. Back in 1972, that was actually kind of groundbreaking. somebody thought of the idea, oh yeah, we're going to put an animated frog at the past the end credits swallowing a human hand. But anyway, thank you so much, everybody, for coming out tonight and watching Frogs with me. I want to say thank you to Cable Channel 11. Watched Frogs with my parents recently. It was on Svengoolie last month. I had fun. Sam Elliott saves it. Yes, I agree with that. I agree with that. John, thank you so much for joining me tonight. You are awesome, my man. Daniel Shine and Christian Hannah Horror, I love you guys. Thank you so much for coming out. Now, two big announcements before I let you guys go. Every Saturday night at 10 p.m., 50th anniversary audio commentary. Every weekend for the rest of the year, there will be a 50th anniversary audio commentary every Saturday night at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And for the next few weeks, next Friday night, I will be doing a 100th anniversary commentary for F.W. Murnau's Nosferatu. Next week, 10 p.m., 100th anniversary commentary for Nosferatu. And then the week after that, on March 5th, I will be doing Tales from the Crypt, directed by Freddie Francis. And then finally, on March 12th, Saturday, March 12th, I will in fact be doing the gargantuan movie, The Godfather, directed by Francis Ford Coppola. I still got to read the book, but by God, I will read the book, and I will be ready to talk about The Godfather for 3 hours on the evening of March 12th. So yeah, next three commentaries: Nosferatu from 1922, Tales from the Crypt, directed by Freddie Francis from 1972, and The Godfather, directed by Francis Ford Coppola, which came out in March of 1972. Again, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I'm glad that you enjoyed the movie as much as I did watching this again, whether you're making fun of it or not making fun of it. But, you know, it's just one of those horror movies that I can watch it and yet not feel too stupid. But I enjoy Frogs. Look, it's a good little horror movie from the 1970s, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But anyway, so see you all next week for Nosferatu. And until then, thank you so much and have a good night, everyone. And this is Stone Gas Man signing off.